After I refused to hand over my $3 million inheritance, my mom hired fake lawyers to steal it, so I secretly set a trap that turned their lives upside down. I'm Sarah, I'm 28 years old, and last month my grandfather left his entire fortune of over $3 million to me. The day after the funeral, my mother, Linda, demanded that I transfer everything to her. When I refused, hell broke loose. This morning, I received a message about an urgent family meeting. Upon entering my childhood home, I froze. My mother, my siblings, my stepfather, and 2 men in expensive suits were staring at me. Sarah, my mother said with a cold smile, meet our consultants. I wasn't prepared for what happened next. My grandfather, Robert, wasn't just family. He was my hero. While most children had pop star posters on their walls, I had a framed photo of my grandfather proudly, standing in front of his first hardware store. He built his business from nothing, starting with a small loan and transforming it into a network of 15 stores throughout the state of Texas. Nothing worth having is easy, Sarah, he would tell me, his voice always carrying that perfect mixture of tenderness and wisdom. My mother, Linda, on the other hand, never understood the value of hard work. As grandfather's only daughter, she grew up expecting everything to be handed to her on a silver platter. Even as a child, I noticed how she would roll her eyes whenever he talked about building character through adversity. My earliest memories include her explosive shopping sessions, the living room overflowing with bags bearing designer logos, followed by whispered discussions between her and my grandfather about money. When I was 12 years old, our family finances were a disaster. Mom changed credit cards like changing clothes, exhausting one before moving on to the next. My stepfather, Kevin, allowed her, partly because he benefited from her spending and partly because confronting her led to explosive fights. They refinanced our house twice before I finished high school. Meanwhile, Grandpa paid special attention to me. He noticed how I would stay in his office during family meetings, fascinated by the account books and business reports scattered across the table. When I was 13, he started taking me to his main store on Saturdays. You have a good head for business, girl, he said one afternoon while I helped him review inventory reports. You notice things others don't see. Those Saturdays became sacred. He taught me how to analyze profit margins, negotiate with suppliers, and, most importantly, how to treat employees with respect. Your business is only as good as the people who run it when you're not there, he used to say. When college time came, Grandpa offered to pay my tuition in full, but my mother intercepted. Suddenly, she was calling him daily, complaining about my sister Emma's medical bills and my brother Tyler's needs. The money for my education mysteriously became family funds. Instead, I took student loans and worked part-time at a local bookstore. Grandpa would visit me there, pretending to browse the business section while slipping me envelopes of money. Don't tell your mother, he would whisper. This is between us. As his health began to decline, our conversations became more serious. I was 26 when he was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. During a hospital visit, he squeezed my hand with surprising strength. I've watched how you handle money, Sarah, he said. You're the only one in this family who understands its value, Linda. He sighed heavily. Your mother never understood that money isn't just for spending. It's responsibility, it's security, it's opportunity. He looked at me with intense clarity. I've made arrangements. You'll be taken care of. When the time comes, there will be pressure. Maintaining your position won't be easy. In his final months, he shared stories about my mother's teenage years, how she would steal from his wallet, forge his signature on checks, and once emptied a savings account he had created for her. I failed her somehow, he confessed during our last real conversation. I gave too much, perhaps, or too little of what really mattered. He squeezed my hand. But you, Sarah, you became perfect. A week later, he fell into a coma. 3 days after, surrounded by family, Robert James Mitchell drew his last breath. I felt a part of me leave with him. The reading of the will took place 2 weeks after the funeral. We gathered in Mr. Harrison's office, a wood-paneled room that smelled of leather and old books. My mother arrived dressed in designer black, her eyes hidden behind large sunglasses. Emma and Tyler sat on either side of her, with Kevin hovering protectively behind them. I sat alone on the other side of the table. Mr. Harrison began reading. The first few minutes covered small bequests, charitable donations, and a generous pension for his longtime housekeeper. Nothing surprising. Then came the bombshell. And to my granddaughter, Sarah Nicole Mitchell, I leave the remainder of my estate, including my business holdings, investment portfolios, real estate properties, and personal effects. The silence that followed was deafening. I sat frozen, the magnitude of what had just happened hitting me in waves. Then my mother ripped off her sunglasses. This is a mistake, she hissed. Read it again. There is no mistake, Mrs. Walker. Your father was very specific in his instructions. This is impossible. I'm his daughter, his only daughter. Mom, please, I whispered. Don't you mom me, she retorted. You knew this, didn't you? You manipulated him when he was sick and vulnerable, Emma chimed in, her voice trembling. Grandpa wouldn't do this to us. He loved us equally. Tyler remained silent, staring at his hands. Mr. Mitchell was in full possession of his faculties when he updated his will 8 months ago, Mr. Harrison said. He was very clear about his wishes. My mother's face twisted with anger. 8 months ago, when he was already sick? That proves it was manipulation? The meeting dissolved into chaos. My mother threatened to contest the will. Kevin made comments about family loyalty. Emma sobbed dramatically. In the parking lot afterward, my mother cornered me against my car. There's a simple solution, Sarah, she said, her voice suddenly calm. Just transfer everything to me, And I'll make sure everyone gets their fair share. I need time to process this, Mom. What's there to process? It's family money. It belongs to all of us. That's not what Grandpa wanted. Her expression hardened. You have no idea what he wanted. I was his daughter for 54 years. You were just a distraction in his old age. I won't make decisions now. Don't be selfish, Sarah. Your brother needs money for college. Emma is drowning in debt. Kevin and I are behind on the mortgage again. The following days brought a flood of calls and messages. Emma called me greedy in a family chat. Kevin left voicemails about doing the right thing. My mother's friends sent messages expressing their disappointment in my character. Tyler was the only one who approached me differently. He showed up at my apartment 3 days after the will reading. I don't care about the money, he said quietly. But Mom is furious. I've never seen her like this. I just wanted to warn you, she's not going to let this go. A week later, my mother organized a family dinner. The moment I arrived, she launched into a prepared speech about family unity. Your grandfather built his business for all of us, she insisted. He never intended for one person to control everything. Then why did he write the will that way? Because you manipulated him, Emma shot back. We all know you were his favorite. Then prove it, my mother said. Sign the money over to me and I'll distribute it fairly. I can't do that. I promised Grandpa I would respect his wishes. His wishes were for the family to be taken care of, my mother shouted. And I intend to honor that, just not in the way you're demanding. The following weeks were some of the most difficult of my life. What started as direct confrontation evolved into a coordinated campaign to break me emotionally. Aunts I barely spoke to called to say how disappointed they were. Cousins sent messages asking why I hated the family. Family takes care of family became my mother's mantra, repeated in daily voicemail messages when I stopped answering her calls. The pressure came from unexpected directions. My mother got information from my work colleagues and started calling my office. My boss called me into her office after the third day of these interruptions. Sarah, is everything okay at home, she asked. Take some personal days if you need to, she offered, and tell reception not to put your mother's calls through anymore. My suspicions grew, so I asked Mr. Harrison for records of my grandfather's financial support to my mother over the years. What I discovered was staggering. In the 5 years before his death, Grandpa had given my mother over $400,000, supposedly for house payments, medical bills, and educational costs. Your grandfather was very generous with your mother, Mr. Harrison observed diplomatically. Some would say excessively so. That night, I received the most disturbing call from Kevin, his words slurred by alcohol. You think you're so smart, he growled. Your mother is having panic attacks because of you. Your mother deserves that money. She had plans for it. What plans? The house in Hilton Head, for starters. We put down a deposit 6 months ago when the old man's doctor gave us the timeline. I felt physically sick. You were spending his money before he was even dead? It was going to be ours anyway, he mumbled. Until you got involved. Marcus found me curled up on the couch in the dark. My boyfriend had used his emergency key after I missed our dinner date. Talk to me, he said. I poured it all out. The inheritance, the pressure, Kevin's threatening call. Maybe I should just give them what they want, I concluded. Sarah, this isn't just about money anymore, he said gently. This is emotional abuse. Your grandfather knew this would happen. He was preparing you for it. Marcus helped me schedule an appointment with Jennifer Walsh, a lawyer who specialized in inheritance disputes. Your mother might be planning something more aggressive than just guilt trips, Jennifer said. The inheritance is significant enough that she could take formal action. She could allege undue influence, suggesting you manipulated your grandfather. Following Jennifer's advice, I started recording calls and saving all messages. I installed security cameras in my apartment after finding my mother's car parked outside one night. Your grandfather saw something in you, Marcus reminded me. The strength to handle this. Trust his judgment. 3 weeks after the will reading, I received a message from my mother. Family meeting tomorrow at 3. Time to resolve this situation once and for all. Be there. Bring your ID and banking information. We'll need it for the paperwork. The trap was set, but this time I wouldn't be the only prey. The next day dawned clear, almost mockingly cheerful for the confrontation I knew was coming. I dressed in a navy blazer, professional and composed, channeling my grandfather's business posture. Jennifer called while I was getting ready. Remember, stay calm no matter what they say. I'll be parked on the street. My mother's house looked deceptively normal when I parked in the driveway at 3 o'clock sharp. The curtains were drawn, unusual for the afternoon. I took a deep breath and grabbed my briefcase containing the documents I had gathered. The door opened before I knocked, revealing my mother's perfect hostess smile, the one that never reached her eyes. Sarah, punctual as always, her voice was sweet as honey, another warning sign. She was wearing a designer dress I'd never seen, her hair freshly colored. Everyone's waiting in the living room. The atmosphere inside was suffocating. Emma and Tyler sat rigidly on the couch, neither looking me in the eye. Kevin stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, watching me with hostility. But what confirmed my suspicions were the 2 strangers, middle-aged men in expensive suits, sitting in the armchairs. Sarah, my mother gestured grandly. Meet Mr. Wilson and Mr. Daniels. They're helping us resolve this unfortunate situation. I nodded politely but didn't offer my hand. I wasn't informed this would involve lawyers. Not exactly lawyers, my mother corrected smoothly. just consultants to help with the paperwork. The only available chair was a straight-backed one positioned to face everyone else. An interrogation setup. I accepted it without comment, placing my briefcase on my lap. Would you like coffee? No, thank you. I'd like to understand the purpose of this meeting. Mr. Wilson cleared his throat, leaning forward with rehearsed concern. Sarah, your family is very worried about the burden that's been placed on you. Managing a substantial estate is complex and stressful. I appreciate the concern, but I've been working in financial management for 7 years. I'm quite capable. Of course you are, dear, my mother interrupted with a condescending smile. But this is about family unity. Your grandfather would have wanted all of us to benefit. If that were true, he would have written his will differently. Emma spoke up, her voice trembling in what I recognized as her theatrical tone. Sarah, you know Grandpa wasn't thinking clearly at the end. The medication, the pain. He wasn't himself. He was lucid until the final week. The will was updated 6 months before that. Mr. Daniels opened a leather portfolio. We've prepared a simple solution that respects your grandfather's wishes while ensuring family harmony. My mother beamed with gratitude. They've been so helpful, Sarah. This way everyone wins. What exactly are you proposing? A voluntary redistribution, Mr. Wilson explained, removing documents. You would transfer the business holdings and investment accounts to your mother as the most experienced family member, retaining a generous portion for yourself, say 20%. I almost laughed. And the real estate properties? Those would be liquidated, with proceeds divided among all family members, Mr. Daniels continued. Your brother has approaching college expenses, and your sister has medical needs. I looked at Tyler, who squirmed uncomfortably. What medical needs does Emma have? That's private, my mother snapped, her facade cracking. Kevin stepped forward. Look, Sarah, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These gentlemen have also prepared documents to contest the will if necessary. On what grounds? Undue influence, Mr. Wilson declared. Your grandfather was elderly and ill. You spent an unusual amount of time alone with him. A judge might find that concerning. The accusation hurt, exactly as intended. My mother pressed the advantage. No one wants a messy court battle, Sarah. Think about what that would do to Grandpa's reputation. I felt a momentary wave of doubt. The self-doubt must have shown on my face because my mother's expression became triumphant. We're just asking you to do the right thing, she continued. Mr. Wilson slid a thick document across the table. Sign this today, and we can put this unfortunate situation behind us. Tyler finally spoke, his voice small. Please, Sarah, Mom says we could lose the house if this isn't resolved. The manipulation was so transparent, it restored my resolve. May I see the documents? Mr. Daniels passed them over with a satisfied smile. Take your time. It's a standard asset transfer. I accepted the papers, my expression neutral, while flipping through the first few pages. As I suspected, it was far from standard. It was a complete surrender of everything my grandfather had built. The room fell silent as I continued reading, tension mounting. My mother fidgeted with her new bracelet, another recent purchase, while Emma whispered something to Kevin. Finally, I closed the document and looked up. 5 pairs of eyes watched me expectantly. Well, my mother prompted. Do you need a pen? I smiled, not the anxious smile they expected, but my grandfather's smile, the one he used when closing an advantageous deal. Before making any decision, I said calmly, I'd like to understand something. Mom, when did you put a deposit on the house in Hilton Head? Her face visibly paled. What are you talking about? Kevin mentioned it during our last call. He said you put down a deposit 6 months ago when Grandpa's doctor gave him his timeline. Emma shot a furious look at Kevin. He cleared his throat, embarrassed. I never said that. I recorded the call, I replied simply. Just as I've documented every threat, every manipulation attempt, and every lie about financial hardships while you were buying luxury items. Mr. Wilson adjusted his tie nervously. Miss Mitchell, family disputes can get emotional. Let's focus on the documents. Yes, let's, I agreed, reaching for my briefcase. I have some documents of my own. That's when my mother stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. You're trying to steal what should rightfully be mine. Like you stole from Grandpa? I asked quietly, opening my briefcase. January 15th of last year, you told Grandpa you needed $30,000 for Tyler's medical treatments. Tyler wasn't sick. The money went to your cruise and Kevin's golf club membership. I extracted the diary entry documenting this, along with a photo I'd found of my mother on that cruise, posted on Instagram with the caption, Best birthday gift ever. Mr. Wilson and Mr. Daniels exchanged uncomfortable glances. May 8th, you claimed Emma needed emergency dental surgery. Emma was in Cancun that weekend. She posted the photos herself. Emma had the dignity to look ashamed. I continued, placing document after document, calmly exposing years of financial manipulation. Grandpa kept records of everything, Mom. Every lie, every manipulated loan, every broken promise of repayment. My mother's face had transformed from shock to fury. How dare you? After everything I've done for you, like using the money Grandpa gave for my college tuition on your spa retreats? That's in here too. The consultants now looked distinctly uncomfortable. Mr. Wilson leaned toward my mother, whispering urgently. She dismissed him. You little ungrateful. I interrupted calmly. This meeting is over. Unless you want me to call my real lawyer who's waiting outside. She's particularly interested in these gentlemen who present themselves as legal consultants while pressuring me to sign documents under false pretenses. Mr. Daniels closed his briefcase hastily. Mrs. Walker, you didn't mention any existing litigation. There isn't any, I clarified. Yet. The implied threat hung in the air. My mother's plan was crumbling, and the anger in her eyes was unlike anything I'd ever seen. This isn't over, she hissed. Actually, it is. I took their document and handed it back. I won't sign this or any variation of it. Grandpa made his wishes clear, and I intend to honor them. He was my father, she almost screamed. Everything he built should have been mine. That's exactly why it isn't, I replied softly. He built to last, Mom, not to be wasted. When I turned to leave, Tyler suddenly stood up. Sarah, wait. Everyone froze. Tyler had been the silent observer throughout this entire confrontation. I'm sorry, he said, his voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. I didn't know about any of this, the lies, the manipulation. I just thought... He looked at our mother, pain evident in his expression. I thought Sarah was being selfish. But that's not true, is it, Mom? Linda's expression hardened. Sit down, Tyler. No. His hands were shaking, but his voice remained steady. I don't want to be part of this. To everyone's shock, he crossed the room to stand beside me. I'm leaving with Sarah. Kevin stepped forward threateningly. You little ungrateful. I'd be careful what you say next, I interrupted, holding up my phone. This entire conversation is being recorded. That stopped him cold. The consultants were already heading for the door. I looked at my mother one last time, feeling an unexpected wave of pity beneath my anger. Goodbye, Mom! With Tyler by my side, I walked out of the house that had once been my home, leaving behind the trap that had caught its own creators. As we left, the door slammed with such force that the porch lights swayed. Jennifer was already getting out of her car, alerted by my text. Are you both okay? She asked, looking at Tyler uncertainly. This is my brother, I explained. He's coming with us. Jennifer Walsh, Sarah's attorney. She extended her hand professionally. The door opened again, revealing my mother, face twisted with rage. Tyler, get back in this house right now. Tyler stiffened beside me but didn't turn around. I can't, Mom. Not after what I heard. They're manipulating you, she screamed. Jennifer stepped forward. Mrs. Walker, I strongly advise you to go back inside. Any further harassment will be documented. Who the hell do you think you are? I'm Miss Mitchell's legal counsel, and unlike your consultants, I'm actually a licensed attorney. My mother looked at Tyler. And you? Don't bother coming back if you leave with her. Tyler visibly flinched but held his ground. Okay. Without another word, my mother retreated inside. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in a cafe several miles away. Tyler stared at his untouched coffee. I can't believe she just disowned me just like that. She's bluffing, I said, though I wasn't convinced. You didn't see how she was after the will reading when you weren't around. It was like she'd become obsessed. Jennifer interrupted. Tyler, did your mother discuss specific plans for the inheritance? He hesitated. She had a whole list. The Hilton Head House was just the beginning. She wanted to buy a stake in some exclusive club, get a boat, renovate the entire house. And my college tuition. He paused. I asked specifically. She said you were smart enough to get scholarships and would probably try to take over Grandpa's business anyway. The casual cruelty of it stung. And your plans for college? She kept saying not to worry, that once she had control of the money, everything would be taken care of. A bitter laugh escaped him. I believed her. You weren't stupid, I assured him. You trusted your mother. Jennifer cleared her throat. We need to discuss next steps. The immediate crisis has been averted, but we should prepare for possible fallout. What do you recommend? First, file the letter and diary as supplemental documentation with the court. Second, consider a restraining order if harassment continues. A restraining order against my own mother? Only if necessary. But the recorded threats should be taken seriously. Tyler, you'll need somewhere safe to stay. I have nowhere to go. Yes, you do, I said without hesitation. You're staying with me. The relief on his face was immediate. Are you sure? Absolutely. Despite everything, you're still my little brother. Jennifer smiled. That's settled then. Now, Sarah, we should discuss your grandfather's estate. Have you thought about how you want to proceed? The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on defending my inheritance that I hadn't fully considered what I would actually do with it. Grandpa wanted me to continue his legacy, I said slowly. Not just preserve it, but build upon it. The hardware stores are still profitable, Jennifer observed. But they face growing competition from big chains. You might consider diversification. Tyler leaned forward, sudden interest replacing his dejection. Grandpa always talked about expanding into eco-friendly construction supplies. He said it was the future, but didn't have the energy to retool the business model. I looked at my brother with surprise. I didn't know you paid attention to his business conversations. He shrugged, a touch of embarrassment coloring his cheeks. I didn't understand most of it, but I liked hearing him get excited about ideas. Something clicked. Tyler, what are you planning to study in college? Business administration, he replied, with a focus on sustainable entrepreneurship. Why? I exchanged a glance with Jennifer, who seemed to read my thoughts and nodded slightly in approval. Because, I said, a plan forming as I spoke, I think Grandpa would like his legacy to include both of us. Tyler's eyes widened. What are you saying? I'm saying that while I won't sign the inheritance over to Mom, I want to share it in a way that honors Grandpa's values. I reached across the table, taking his hand. How would you feel about an internship at Mitchell's Hardware while you're in college? Learning the business from the ground up, like Grandpa taught me. Are you serious? Hope flickered across his face. Completely serious. And if you prove yourself, which I know you will, there could be a place for you in the company after graduation. But what about Emma and Mom? He asked. I sighed. Emma made her choice. As for Mom, I won't enable her self-destructive financial habits, but I won't abandon her either. We can establish a modest fund with strict conditions. Jennifer nodded approvingly. A properly structured fund would prevent misuse while providing security. We could include educational provisions for Tyler, and even Emma if she changes her mind. For the first time since this entire ordeal began, I felt a sense of clarity and purpose. This wasn't just about honoring my grandfather's wishes anymore. It was about carrying forward his values in a way that could heal our family, even if that healing took years. So what happens now? Tyler asked. Now, I replied with newfound confidence, we build something that would make Grandpa proud. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of practical arrangements. Jennifer helped Tyler create a list of personal items to retrieve from our mother's house, with a police escort as a precaution. I called Marcus, who immediately offered to help Tyler settle into my apartment. The weeks following the confrontation marked the beginning of a new chapter. The initial fallout was predictably difficult. My mother launched a brief, furious campaign of messages alternating between vicious accusations and tearful pleas. When those failed, she turned to social media, posting attacks about ungrateful children and family betrayal. I maintained my public silence. She wants a reaction, Marcus reminded me when the pain became overwhelming. Don't give her that satisfaction. The hardware stores demanded immediate attention. Without Grandpa's steady hand, some managers had become complacent, and sales were beginning to decline. I took leave from my marketing job and immersed myself in business operations, visiting each location. Tyler accompanied me whenever his class schedule allowed, absorbing knowledge with an enthusiasm that reminded me of myself at his age. Watching him interact with employees and ask insightful questions about inventory management, I saw glimpses of our grandfather. You have a natural talent for this, I told him after a productive meeting with suppliers. I just remember things Grandpa said. It helps me know what questions to ask. That's exactly what makes you good at this. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Emma reached out unexpectedly. She asked to meet at a cafe, neutral territory. I arrived first, securing a corner table where I could watch the door, still cautious after everything that had happened. She entered hesitantly, looking smaller without our mother's dominating presence beside her. The designer clothes remained, but something in her demeanor had changed. Thank you for coming, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I wasn't sure you would. I was surprised you called. She fidgeted with the napkin, avoiding my eyes. Mom doesn't know I'm here. She'd be furious. How is she? Angry, hurt, drinking more than usual. Emma finally looked up. She's selling the house. Says she can't afford the mortgage anymore. I'd expected to feel vindicated. Instead, I felt a complicated sadness. Where is she going? Kevin's sister has a rental property. It's smaller, but nice. She hesitated. Tyler's room is still untouched. I think she's hoping he'll come back. Has she reached out to him? Emma shook her head. Her pride won't let her. She took a deep breath. I owe you an apology, Sarah. I said terrible things. I believed Mom when she said you'd manipulated Grandpa. You were protecting her. I understand loyalty. It wasn't just loyalty. Her voice dropped. I was jealous. You were always Grandpa's favorite, and I resented that. When the will was read, it felt like final confirmation that I didn't matter. But these past weeks, watching Mom spiral, seeing how she's handling things, I've been thinking about why Grandpa made the choice he did. And now I understand. This admission left me momentarily speechless. I'm not asking for money, Emma clarified quickly. I miss my sister, and I miss Tyler. Mom is determined to cut you both off forever, but I can't do that. I reached across the table. After hesitation, she took my hand. Family is complicated, I said, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing. This meeting marked the beginning of a careful reconciliation with Emma. We agreed to keep our contact private for now, protecting her from our mother's wrath while leaving the door open for eventual healing. The legal aspects of the inheritance were finally resolving. Jennifer helped me establish 3 separate funds, an educational fund for Tyler, a modest monthly stipend for my mother. I couldn't bring myself to cut her off completely, and a charitable foundation in my grandfather's name focused on entrepreneurial education for disadvantaged youth. The foundation in particular would have pleased him. Throughout his life, he had mentored young people with business aspirations but limited resources, offering jobs, advice, and financial support. Formalizing this support felt like the perfect tribute. 6 months after Grandpa's death, I finally moved into his house. It was a practical decision. My apartment was too small for Tyler and me long-term. I kept most rooms as they were, but we converted his office into a shared workspace. We hung his portrait above the fireplace. The business began to thrive under our combined attention. Tyler's research into eco-friendly construction materials opened new market opportunities, while my marketing background helped position Mitchell's Hardware as the progressive alternative to impersonal chains. We began a modest expansion, opening a specialized showroom that attracted younger homeowners and environmentally conscious contractors. A year after the confrontation, I received an unexpected email from my mother. The subject line read, "Truce." The message was brief. "Sarah, I've spent a year being angry. It hasn't changed anything except make me more bitter. Emma tells me the business is doing well. She says Tyler is thriving in college. I miss my children. If you're willing, I'd like to talk. No lawyers, no demands. Just talk, Mom." After discussing with Tyler, Emma, and Marcus, I agreed to meet her at a restaurant. She arrived punctually, looking older but more composed than during our last encounter. The designer clothes had disappeared, replaced by a simple blouse. Her expression when she saw me was cautious but not hostile. "Thank you for coming," she said. "How are you, Mom?" "Getting by. The rental is actually nice, less to clean. Kevin and I are taking time apart." "That was news. I'm sorry to hear that." She shrugged. "It's been coming for a while. Your grandfather used to say Kevin brought out the worst in me. I'm starting to think he was right about that too." The acknowledgement that Grandpa was right about anything money-related was surprising progress. "I'm seeing someone," she continued, eyes fixed on her water glass. "A therapist, Emma's idea. It's helping me understand some things about myself, about why I always felt so empty no matter how much I acquired." Our conversation that day wasn't a magical reconciliation. Years of dysfunctional patterns couldn't be undone in a single lunch. But it was a beginning. She asked thoughtful questions about the business, listened when I explained about the foundation, and seemed genuinely pleased when I showed photos of Tyler's Dean's List certificate. Before we parted, she said something that stayed with me. "Robert would be proud of you, Sarah, not because of what you did with the money, but because of who you became, despite how difficult I made it." It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. The path to family healing remains long and uncertain. Some days bring progress, others trigger old patterns. My mother and I maintain careful boundaries, but the open hostility has faded. She even attended the grand opening of our newest store, staying quietly in the back during my speech, but remaining for cake afterward. Tyler graduates next year, ready to assume a full-time role in the company. Emma, inspired by the foundation's work, started volunteering at a women's shelter and talked about returning to school for social work. And Marcus, well, the ring he put on my finger last month suggests we'll be building our future together. As for me, I've finally made peace with my grandfather's choice. The inheritance wasn't just about money or business acumen. It was about values, about building instead of consuming, about using resources to create something meaningful that survives us. In the final entry of his diary, Grandpa wrote that he believed I had what my mother never developed, strength of character. For a long time, that seemed like too heavy a compliment to accept. Now I understand it wasn't a compliment, but recognition of something he had observed over years of watching me grow and make difficult choices. Standing up to family pressure was the hardest thing I'd ever done. But through that painful process, I discovered my own capacity for both firmness and compassion, for honoring the past while building something new. That's the real inheritance. Not the money or the business, but the understanding that true wealth lies in what we create, what we share, and what we leave for others. If you're facing a similar family conflict over money or inheritance, remember that holding your ground doesn't mean closing your heart. Boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges that allow healthy relationships. Today, when I look out the window of the office I share with Tyler, I see not just the empire my grandfather built, but the future we're creating together. Tyler is working on a business plan for a new line of sustainable products. His passion reminds me of Grandpa himself. On the wall, Grandpa's portrait watches with those kind eyes. And in the corner of the desk, in a simple frame, is the last page of his diary with that note in the margin. "The true measure of wealth isn't what you have, but what you do with it. Make it count, Sarah." Every day I strive to honor those words. It's not always easy and I don't always get it right, but I know I'm building something that will last, something that would make my grandfather smile with pride. The money my grandfather left me was significant, but the real gift was the opportunity to discover who I really was when tested. He saw in me a strength I didn't even know I possessed, and by entrusting me with his legacy, he gave me the chance to become the person he believed I could be. The inheritance I received wasn't just financial, it was a lesson about integrity, about making difficult decisions, about the difference between being generous and being used. It was about learning that sometimes loving someone means not giving them what they want, but helping them become who they're capable of being. My grandfather gave me more than money. He gave me an example of how to live with purpose, how to build something lasting, and how to stay true to your values even when it's difficult. That's a legacy I hope to pass forward. In the end, I discovered that true inheritance isn't about what you receive, it's about what you become in the process of earning it. Robert James Mitchell gave me more than a fortune. He gave me the opportunity to discover my own strength, and that's a gift no amount of money can buy. Real inheritance is not wealth but the courage to honor values. That's the end of my story. Now I want to ask you, in the end, am I the asshole? Or not?